Bruh, your foundations suck. Improve your draftsmanship. To work in this field, you need great draftsmanship and foundations. I think people use the word draftsmanship to sound smart, honestly. To me, it doesn't feel like valid feedback anymore, and it means nothing. It's like, yay, preach the same thing that every experienced artist always does. But when an inexperienced artist comes up to them and asks them, what do they mean by draftsmanship? Those same experienced artists have a terrible time explaining what draftsmanship is to them. And that's when you realize that draftsmanship is a word that everyone just throws around and thinks it's okay criticism. But in reality, it's lost meaning to them too. So what does draftsmanship mean to me? Hey guys, it's Nico Pantoa, and today I'd like to talk about draftsmanship and drawing skill. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this topic is because I feel that the word draftsmanship has been thrown so much. Like, people throw that word a lot, especially in the world of learning how to draw or the world of art and animation. To work in animation or to attend a school that specializes in an animation course that is hard and rigorous, they want their students to have a decent handle of their draftsmanship skills. The general definition of someone who has good draftsmanship skills basically just means that they're good at drawing. But that definition can also be pretty general, and it could also be confusing to people who are just learning how to draw or just trying to get better at drawing. And of course, there are artists who come up with their own definition of what draftsmanship is. They come up with their own rules of what draftsmanship should be. And it just gets convoluted and silly, but whatever. So how would I talk about good drawing skill or good draftsmanship skill? And also being aware that everyone has a style. So I believe that there are multiple phases and categories of draftsmanship, just as how everyone defines whatever a good drawing is. If I were to summarize it on my own, I believe that there are three components that make good draftsmanship or good drawing skill. The first one is technical draftsmanship or academic drawing, and I feel like that this is the most popular definition of what draftsmanship is to drawing. So these are things like figure drawing, anatomy, color theory, perspective, constructive drawing, learning how to draw things from primitive shapes, lighting and shading. To me, this is the most engineered side thinking to drawing. Things have to work. Things have to make sense. You understand why it works and how it works. You use methods and procedures that require measurements. You're using proportions. You're being academic with your approach. And if you just put in the time, the measurements, and just all these procedures, you're bound to get a pretty technical drawing. So I personally do think that technical drawing can be taught if everyone was following the same procedure or the same steps, and just thinking of that mindset of everything has to work in a certain way. To get better at this, use measurements, learn anatomy. Take your time and learn how to break complex things into very simple shapes, so you can recreate it down the line. So yeah, the most technical side to drawing. Actually, my previous video, drawing skills that you need for animation, whether it's to learn it or whether it's to get a career in it. If it's a position that requires a lot of drawing, I've already talked about technical drawing skills that you might want to learn, so please check that video out. Now, the second component I'd like to talk about is design. And a lot of people mistake design for style. So the way that I would define design is more about problem solving to make something work, or making things work the most efficient way. It's all about prioritizing or emphasizing certain things. You take out things that are just too distracting and just exaggerating a few elements to make that idea stand out more. Although style does not equal design, I feel like making design choices do make up whatever your style is. So think about graphic design, using shapes and shape language to push an idea forward. When you're doing figure drawing, there's that whole idea of pushing that force, exaggeration, using action lines to really push that movement. Understanding more about color theory and how it works with things like emotion, how shape language can also affect emotions. Sometimes in animation and character design, you don't try to describe every crease of the cloth folds and all that. In most cases, it's simplified. I think design to me is all about solving drawing problems. If you just do everything very technical with all these measurements and you're just trying to put in everything, I doubt that it's going to make that drawing strong. And in fact, it might make that drawing look really distracting. Let's talk about animation, for example, because that's what I'm quite familiar with. It's all about problem solving your design so they are animatable or they work in the world of animation, whether that's simplifying the art style, whether it's breaking them down into constructive shapes, or whether it's just using certain shapes to push an idea forward. Kind of like graphic design. It's choosing what to leave out and what to prioritize. You can study influential artists to see how they solve problems, what shapes and symbols they're using. You could give yourself little challenges, like for example, ancient Greece art mixed with Art Nouveau and fashion runway art. What kind of problem solving would you do to make that work? Alright, the third component that I feel is something that's been underestimated in the world of drawing is actual observation. And the reason why I bring this up is because people are finding that easy tip and trick to draw a human body or a human head. They're trying to find hacks and symbols that they can reuse in order to draw something, finding drawing shortcuts that they feel might instantly make them a better artist. And honestly, I'm not against that. I think everyone has their own way of solving a problem, and I think it's good that people do share their discoveries. But there's a lot of good art where I can clearly tell that the draftsmanship is good, the design sensibilities are good, but it just feels generic and boring to me. And just using design theories and philosophies that you saw from some other place and just reusing that, it's going to create habits for sure. Like you're gonna keep reusing the same symbols, you're going to go back to the same drawing habits, and it's only going to stunt your growth. And of course, to get better at observation skills, you can't resort to your habits. So one thing that I would always advise to people learning how to draw is draw blind contour, meaning that you're sketching something from life, but you're not looking at your drawing. You're only looking at your subject while your hand and pencil moves across the paper or tablet. And of course, observation is important, so if you want to look at reference, you're really analyzing that reference to see what makes that thing work. And how do you replicate that exact moment? If you want to have believable performances and acting in your drawings, and when you use reference, you start finding little bits and pieces in that reference that make that true. So to me, those are the main three components that I feel that make a good draftsmanship or someone who's good at drawing. But there are other things I can bring up that I won't talk about as much, such as someone being able to replicate a different style or to draw in a different style. Knowing how to tell stories through a single drawing. The attitude, the acting, the performance, the mood, the atmosphere, the tone. And the biggest one I can think of is clarity. Is it clear what I'm looking at? And are those ideas strengthened? I think a good draftsmanship does things out of intention. And it doesn't mean knowing exactly what you're going to draw, but thinking about how you're going to get to that drawing, or how you're experimenting with it. So if you were giving a drawing demo, for example, and someone asks you why you're doing a stroke in a certain way, or why do you break down a subject in the way that you do, you can explain it. Even though it might not be the most ideal answer or the most ideal way in how people should draw, at least you have intentions behind your work. Like imagine yourself giving a drawing demo and then someone asks you a question why you make certain choices in your drawings or art or whatever. If you can explain it, that shows you have intentions. So that's a big thing, have intentions behind whatever you do. So my short answer is that draftsmanship skill is always a skill that's growing. And this is for every artist too. There'll be a time where we just want to make really technical drawings and just hone in our technical knowledge of drawing. And then there are times where we just want to push elements, push that design sensibility, push shapes, and make it pretty look. Other times we just don't want to constantly think about how do we fix a certain thing, how do we fix a drawing so it looks nice. So it can also be relieving just to draw things from what you see from life, just to absorb things rather than just trying to fix it in your own little world. So I think getting into the mindset of these different components, it's seasonal. Sometimes you want to be technical, observational, or designy. But if I were to put things in an order in what to prioritize, I would say observation first. Learn to capture what you see, not to resort to previous drawing habits, just learning how to see and capture things. Then I would do technical drawing. Learn how to use various measurements to get a more finished looking image. Then finally, design. Because I think design is where a lot of experimentation happens, a lot of problem solving happens, and that stuff always changes depending on what the goal is for a project, or an assignment, or a certain goal. So if I were to wrap this video up, stop making draftsmanship so complicated and so overrated, because at the end of the day, we all suck at our drawing skills. I suck, you suck, he sucks, she sucks, they suck. The only difference is that some people have more experience, and that's about it. But one thing we should all consider is that we're all going through our own journey learning how to draw, whether it's to draw more cartoony, realism, abstract, graphic. And we should just try doing different things that can help us grow in our drawing sensibilities and help improve ourselves. And we also have to acknowledge that some people just want to get better at the technical side of drawing. Some people want to have a nice, pretty looking style, and some just want to break out of comfort zone. Anyways, that's all I want to talk about. Bye. You suck. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.